And now it's time for Guerilla Roundup. They'll let you know what happened overnight when things transpire you whilst you sleep. Right there in the loop you keep.
Hello again. This is the Guerilla Roundup. We're doing a summary of day 2 of the test between England and Ireland at Lord's, and I'm very pleased to be joined today by one of the head honchos of guerrilla cricket and the voice you all love to hear, Guerilla Hendo. Welcome, Hendo.
Thank you very much, Messy Jones. I thought you were going to say something like the voice of cricket, or maybe even the voice of Sydenham. That would be, I suppose, that would be acceptable.
You don't have the South London accent to go with the voice
Nah,
of
that's
Sydenham.
true. That's true. I'm learning from the bear, but it's not coming naturally, I have to say.
Yeah. So, if you would, could you summarise where the game stands and what happened today in 90 seconds?
I think it's fair to say that England are in the ascendancy. It was another day of carnage in the Bazball stroke Stokey Cullen ball era, as England advanced from 152 for 1, 20 behind overnight, to 524 for 4, upon which they declared 82.4 overs, a run rate, an extraordinary run rate again at 6.33. And at the forefront of that, we had initially Ben Duckett, who was batting beautifully. Was finally bowled by him chopping on for 182 off 178 balls. It was his second 100 at Lord's this summer alone, but he couldn't go on to make the double 100. Unlike Ollie Pope, who it was an extraordinary innings, really. He was brilliant between sort of 40 and 100 and 120, 130. Then seemed to think perhaps he should get out and let someone else have another go. Then realised, having not been able to get himself out, that he might get a double 100. And so he stuck around to do that, ended up getting 205 before he was stumped by Tucker for a clever wider ball from the off-spinner, Andy McBride. Joe Root, who was almost out LBW early on in proceedings when he came to the wicket, then batted as Joe Root does. He didn't do anything spectacular. That said, he did try a couple of reverse scoops early on, which didn't come off. And then Ollie Pope, having seen that, he's now the mini Root. He went down the other end and showed him how it should be done. So ultimately, Harry Brook got a few balls, 7 balls, to help Ollie Pope to his double 100, which he went to with a fantastic 6. Thing to say, Ireland's bowling was poor. I think some of their captaincy was poor, but you have to make allowances for these guys. You know, they're not getting enough cricket at this level, and they need to get more. And there is talent there, certainly amongst the batsmen, but it's not really being shown amongst the bowlers at the moment. Of course, we're missing Josh Little, who might be a little bit of a step up. Mark Adair, disappointing after what he did in 2019, none for 127. Fionn Hand, 1 for 113. Graham Hume, 1 for 85. Andy McBride took some punishment. But by that time, of course, Ireland were really struggling, and Ben Duckett and Ollie Pope were so well on their way that he was on a hiding to nothing. Ireland batted a second time shortly after tea. We wondered whether they could even get through to the end. They lost Peter Moore after Stokes decided to bring Tongue on after 3 overs of Stuart Broad, and Tongue did the business. He got rid of Peter Moore, first ball of his spell. He got rid of Andy Balbirnie, poor shot from the Ireland captain. And he got rid of Paul Sterling, strangled down the leg side. But he was bowling to a plan, a lot of short deliveries, and a lot of people placed in the deep for potential catches. Stuart Broad, none for 18. Matthew Potts, none for 28. Josh Tongue, 3 for 27. Jack Leach, none for 24. But another thing, although they are 97 for 3, they've lost James McCollum, their opening batsman, to what looks like a serious ankle injury when he was just trying to pull a short delivery. So we might say that after 26 overs of batting this evening, they are effectively 97 for 4. You would expect England to go on and complete victory. Pitch isn't doing a great deal, which is probably why they're resorting to short pitch bowling. But I think England will have this wrapped up by an hour after lunch tomorrow.
Thanks very much, Hendo. That was probably the most precise summary that I've been able to get from anybody so far on this program. So congratulations, even if it was more than twice the 90 seconds. I'm just an
Yeah, I did
optimist.
begin it. I did realise it was running over a little bit, but
Yeah,
it's hard, isn't it?
it
It's hard.
happens. It happens.
It happens. It
Um,
happens.
so it was full house at Lord's today. Well, it looked pretty full anyhow.
Pretty much.
Lovely weather, especially once the cloud cleared by about lunchtime.
Mm.
Um, it's not a test match full of tension, but what do you see coming out of this, and both for Ireland and for England in their preparation for the Ashes series?
Well, I thought yesterday that England were being a little bit experimental. The short ball that Josh Tongue was bowling on day one under instruction, and then again today. I mean, the pitch was doing a little bit more yesterday than it was today. Anyway, I'm not sure what England will get from this. They'll get higher averages. Most of their batsmen,
Yes,
basically, because
so
you know
junk runs basically.
yeah, junk runs. I mean, no one's gonna sort of put their noses at a double hundred at Lords or getting on the honours board or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're not going to see England, even if England play like this, they're not going to end up 520 for 4 against Australia. I don't think. You have to take into account that the bowling was poor. Now, again, I don't judge Ireland on this in a sense because I think there is talent in this team. Someone alluded to the fact that Mark Adair had ankle surgery a couple of years ago, and that may be why his pace seems to have dropped. And he didn't bowl particularly well. I was expecting a little bit more from him. They haven't got Josh Little. Would Craig Young have been a better choice than Graham Hume? I'm not sure. It's a difficult one, but I think I was saying to Bear, or maybe on air right at the end of today, what you want to see from Ireland tomorrow is real grit and determination. In fact,
Yep.
Tector and Lorcan Tucker batted really well in that final, I guess, hour or so. And if they can go on and get in tomorrow, if they can stretch this out maybe to tea tomorrow, get themselves somewhere near 280, 300, I think the batsmen will have got something from this. The bowlers aren't going to get anything from it. They got nothing from the first innings. They're not even going to get anything from the second innings because England won't have to bat a second time.
Although
So
it should be noted that Jack Leach was starting to get a bit of turn from it late this evening.
Oh no, I'm not talking about the England bowlers. Sorry, I was talking about the Ireland bowlers not being able to get anything.
Yeah, I'm
from
just wondering if it could be interesting to see if there is actually some deterioration in the wicket at all tomorrow. But I
Well,
suppose
I mean,
day three at Lords normally doesn't, does it?
well, I know. I mean, a couple of balls turned quite sharply from Jack Leach, didn't they, in that last little spell?
Yeah.
And he'd have been quite excited about that. He'd be more excited to see it do that against the Australians on the second day. I think that he's got a chance of getting a few wickets against them. I'm not sure that Jack Leach will end up bowling a hell of a lot more, or whether the Ireland innings will last long enough for us to tell how much the pitch might deteriorate. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm really hopeful that Tector and Lorcan Tucker can back with the same sort of authority they did tonight, and the abstinence. Trying to avoid all those short balls or selecting when to take them on. I think they did a really, really fantastic job. What have they added? They've added 34 in best part of 10 overs. It's been a good little partnership. So from an Ireland perspective, going forward, the batsman might get something from it. I mean, I think James McCollum, if he's able to come back, because I thought he's promised a lot. He got a good 30 odd in the first innings. He looks like technically a good player. He lets the ball come to him very late and plays it very close to his body. So I have hopes about the batting. I'm really worried about the Ireland bowling, but of course they've got other fish to fry, haven't they? They're talking about going to Zimbabwe for the World Cup qualifiers.
Yep.
And at the moment, I'm afraid that's the way that they're going to have to build their game. But it would be nice if the ICC would come along and give them a nice big chunk of money and say, actually, play a few more test matches, get better, and then you'll be a truly competitive side.
That's exactly what the ICC ought to be doing, you'd think.
Yeah.
As far as the England bowling's concerned, I mean, Stuart Broad was sort of pretty much Stuart Broad. Potts and Tongue basically working in their roles as understudies for the Test series coming up. What do you make of them? It was good to see Tongue get some wickets and not being told to bowl bounces the whole time.
Well, he was asked to bowl bouncers after he got the wickets, really. I mean, he got the wicket with a very full ball, the first wicket that he got, which was his first ball. He got 2 wickets in the first over. A horrible shot, I'm afraid to say, from Andy Balbirnie. The Bears talk about the fact that every time he sees Andy Balbirnie bat, he never gets any runs. And I think that's pretty true of me as well. I mean, we know that he is quite a decent batsman. He's, had county experience, but at Test level, maybe there's just too much going on in his head at the moment. Matthew Potts, I think, continues to impress. He gets the ball to move up the hill or down the hill. Looking ahead to the Ashes and how England are going to perm their bowlers, I think Matthew Potts is possibly going to play a bigger role than I would have expected at the outset, but with the injuries that have been setting in and the fact that we have to rest certain players, and because the games are so packed close together. Josh Tongue, I mean, you can't argue with figures of 3 for 27 from 8 overs. He missed out in the first innings, didn't bowl badly. He's got a fastest ball around about 90 miles an hour. He was a little bit down on that this evening, but again, that might be because he was just throwing the ball into the pitch as much as anything to get that lift. It augurs well for England, and a lot better than it felt like a week or so ago when we knew that Jofra Archer would be missing out, that we know that Mark Wood can probably only play 3 or maybe 2 tests in the summer. We know that Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson probably can't play 5 tests in that short period as well. So it's going to be really a case of how they can move these bowlers around. Some people might argue Stuart Broad should have been given this test match off, but perhaps they wanted an experienced man to lead the attack, considering they'd only really got a 4-man attack with Ben Stokes unable to bowl. So I think there were some good points from an England bowling perspective, but I don't think we should get carried away with this victory at all, as it's going to be, because they're playing possibly a weaker Ireland team than it was 4 years ago.
Yeah, well, no Murtagh makes a big difference too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As far as the batting's concerned, I mean, Ben Duckett and Ollie Pope, you couldn't have asked much more of them, really, when you look at 182 and 205. But it's really just a really good field net session for them. Joe Root, for me, was not very convincing, to be honest, particularly early on. I think Ireland got a bit of a zip in their step after taking that wicket, after waiting for so long to get Duckett's wicket, that for the next half hour or so, they were actually showing a bit more vim in the way they played. And Root was scratching for a while, I thought.
Yeah, a little bit. But I mean, in a way, that's only to be expected. And however great a batsman you are, and we know because he went to 11,000 runs, only the second English batsman to get to that point in Test cricket today. We know he's a great player, but he still has to bat. And he's been out in India, sitting, I don't know, in various departure lounges, chomping on his Toblerones, his giant Toblerones. I've used that joke before, but it's always worth it again. He ended up playing 3 games. 2 of them he didn't bat. One of them he got 10 in an awful defeat. Surely he has to have an innings of some note before the Ashes, and he's not going to get that in county cricket. So this game was the only chance that he had. He could have been out quite early on. At least he did, get into some semblance of form, played a couple of really good shots as well. 56 off 59 balls. He may think that's, the kind of warm-up he needs for the Ashes.
Yeah.
But, obviously the bowling is going to be so much better. Harry Brook, got a little run at the end of that. I'd like to have seen him given a bit longer. And maybe Stokes himself to have a bat. I mean, the very fact that Stokes denied himself an innings seems a little bit strange to me, because he barely got any cricket in India, because of the knee injury, and I worry that he'll be going into the Ashes barely having wielded a bat apart from in the nets.
Was sort of playing a Mike Brearley sort of role. There as captain and
Well,
nothing else.
yeah, but I mean, he's so much he's so much more of a player than
Yeah,
Mike Brearley, isn't he? I mean,
yeah,
you don't want to be, great if he can just sort of sit at the back and order his minions to do the work for him and do a really good job. But at some point, Ben Stokes is going to be needed, whether it's bat or ball, in this summer. And I just think I think it's a little bit strange that he didn't go out there and have a knock, to be honest.
yeah. So we usually look for comedy moments or whatever. There weren't a lot of noticeable misdeeds in the field today. Ireland fielded fairly decently in the circumstances, I thought. No comedy runouts. Any particularly striking moments apart from the agonising side of McCollum injuring his ankle, which was quite painful all round, I think.
Well, it's not so much a striking moment, but a striking period of the day when I think Ollie Pope just realised how easily runs were coming to him, that he began to experiment with his shots. I think he was trying to invent a couple more before the Ashes, and that was an entertaining little section. It was almost like, I wrote an article some years ago about Joe Root almost not knowing. Knowing how good he is, but not really realizing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that he gets to a point where he has to create difficulty for himself, just to make it become a challenge. And I felt that was true of Ollie Pope today. He really seemed to be so in control of his game. Played a lot more on the offside, which I was pleased to see. I am a little bit worried that he will run down the wicket and try and clip Josh Hazlewood through mid-wicket, and I don't think it's going to work that well against Josh Hazlewood. That said, he's done it with varying degrees of success against other Test teams in recent months and years. So maybe he will be able to do that. But there were a few glorious cover drives, and I prefer to see him playing those cover drives rather than coming down the wicket and trying to work balls from on or just outside off stump towards mid-wicket.
If your natural game is good enough, don't try to embellish it, basically.
Well, yeah, but I mean, part of it is this whole thing of batsmen coming at the bowler, and I suppose that gives, it does tell the bowler that he's coming to you. But I just think the Australians will know too much for that kind of game.
Yeah, indeed. So we normally finish up with the tweeter of the day and the gorilla of the day. I have a very firm nomination for the tweeter of the day, being Chris the Choir, who was referring to a description of a shot in the field. He said, pulled by Pope sounds like a headline worthy of Il Sport Domenicale, which I rather liked. Even if
we had a bit of fun with Vatican Slices today, didn't we? And we had a bit of religious chat late on in the day. We were speaking in Josh tongues for a while, and to me that was quite good fun. I haven't specifically got a tweet of the day, although there were some really good ones. I think I do seem to remember laughing quite a lot during the day.
Well, that's as it should be, yes.
As it should be, absolutely. I don't know what your criteria for a gorilla of the day is.
Just the standout. Well, it's sometimes it's nothing special, but today for me, I think he's lying down on the couch behind you. The bear has to be the gorilla of the day for his revelation that for 5 years, while playing cricket every Saturday afternoon, he was stoned while playing, which I think is quite a feat.
For a whole 5 years?
Yes.
I didn't hear that. I must have missed that somehow.
Yeah, and he was proud of it too. I mean, apart from anything else, what occurred to me is the afternoon teas must have disappeared pretty fucking fast when he was doing that.
Yeah, what was in those cakes? That's the question, isn't it? That's another question. I mean, if that's what you get at Old Allen's, is it Old Allen's that you used to play for? Yeah. I think I've been gobbling up the tea all afternoon. Absolutely, tremendous stuff. Yeah. I mean, he could be gorilla. I think also gorilla of the day, possibly Steve Jones, on the basis that I had no idea that he was coming in. I don't know why. I hadn't looked at the rotors properly. There was a slight ring of the bell at some point. I thought, better go and see who it is. And I was shocked by the tall man with grey hair. I don't know. I think maybe I was thinking it was going to be Jack. And it was so the opposite of Jack that it completely threw me for a while. And I had to sort of... the first time I met... I forgot what his name is now. He was that guy who used to come on a lot. Young guy. The other... Jacob Jaffa.
Oh, yeah,
First time I
yeah.
met Jacob Jaffa, and I opened the door to him and I said, yeah. And I thought he was probably delivering some food or beer. It turned up to be...
Ever the optimist.
Ever the optimist, absolutely true. Absolutely
Well, thank
true.
you for that, Hendo. So we'll wrap it up there. But just a reminder that if you like this, please click the like button below. Feel free to comment in the comments below here, or tweet us at Guerilla Cricket. And if you'd like to support us, please do so. We need all the help we can get. If you go to patreon.com/Guerilla Cricket, there are a number of options there in terms of supporting us, and we would love to have you on board with us. And those who become Patreons get a whole lot of extra benefits, including the weekly podcast of the Bishop and the Bear, the Smaximum newsletter, which is quite frankly a superb piece of writing on a weekly basis, which I think is very good value. And at higher levels, you also get access to other benefits. Tomorrow we will be back. Today's Gorilla of the Day, the Bear, will be doing the summary with me whenever play finishes, as an alternative to having to go to the Blue Water Shopping Centre, which is not his favourite.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be. You don't want him to have to do that just before he goes to Blue Water, do you? Because he's going to be in a grim old mood.
Well, he'll make it last as long as possible too.
Well, he might do that, yeah, and then he'll ring up his wife and say, "Oh, it's getting a bit late now, isn't it, darling? Isn't it? Something along those lines, anyway." I wish him well. God, why anyone would want to go to Blue Water any time ever in their life is a mystery to me.
Well, thank you very much, Hendo, and we'll catch you all tomorrow.
And now it's time for Guerilla Roundup. They'll let you know what